Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, draft dudes and draft dudettes. My name's Bellissimo. This is Joe Tippmann, the centre for Wisconsin Badgers, or possibly your team if you've already drafted him. I don't know whether you're watching this pre-draft or post-draft, but we're going to get into it. We're going to take a look at what he can do on the film, and then hopefully you'll enjoy it and you'll pass the information on to other people. So let's get started. So what we're going to do is just roll into this rep, and you're going to see it's basically a zone to the right as the offense. Obviously it's a zone against Ohio State. So what normally happens on a zone, you want to double one player on the line of scrimmage, and then you want to get to second. So you can see here, you got a double, you're going to work a double that way, you're going to work a double this way, and that will be single block with leaving this guy on the outside. That's the way it would normally go. So let's see what happens with Joe. Obviously he's going to a one tech, slightly inside shade. He's not quite one tech, it's like too high. Gets to 51, and you see the linebacker at 22 starting to come in, so you can see him coming into the hole here. Joe's got to try and clear him out because we're not going to get off that block to get to second level. But at the end of the day, moving 51 is the primary importance. The guard comes over to that number 22, the backer. Moving 51 is the main thing, but what I do like about this is 36 would be the secondary target, 35. Joe gets to him and gets a decent block on him, so that's a pretty good start to the scheme. Now what you do see with Joe sometimes is here he's going to single block the defensive tackle, and you see the defensive tackle actually sort of slants towards him, so you've kind of got trying to reach, because at the end of the day this is a 3 tech, so it's actually quite difficult from the snap hand to make sure. So there's two things you want to see really. You want to see a decent snap into the hand of the centre, you want to see the movement to get there, but obviously not over committing, which Joe at times has a likelihood to do. Now because obviously it's a zone right, as you can see they're zoning to the right, Joe wants to get his head really, he gets kind of caught with that contact slanting towards him, he gets caught to the wrong side of that. What he has to do now is work his hips around or get a drive on. He does get a drive on, so that's again not the perfect technique but a decent recovery. This time it's 51 with a pull, so what you're going to get basically, we're going to single that, we're going to get a pull around the back, and Joe does a fairly decent job here. So again on to 51. Problem is though, this is what happens basically when you stop your feet dead. And you can see Joe doesn't really work his feet, he's leaning, he's not making contact with his hands first, he's making contact with head and shoulders, and it's an easy basically push pull. 51 gets past, swim over the top. It's only the rest of the bodies there that really stop him from getting and knifing in on that play. That's the downside of what Joe does do sometimes, is an occasion that he will lunge and it's quite easy to swim past him despite his massive size. It's the one thing that sort of the difference between him and John Michael Schmitz is, and this is a really good rep by the way, because what I love is he sort of fakes that way, so it's almost like he's running a counter. Maybe there's a bit of running back in there, he fakes a counter going that way. So it's like, I'm going to block him, no I'm not, I'm going to play a game, I'm going to go over here and muller this chap. So there you can see, gets round, 87 doing a decent job on the underline tight end, sealing in 33 defensive end. Now the problem is Joe's going to his target, which is first man, so either he needs to pull and come here, or it's kick out, and then this one is going to pull and come here. Joe quite clearly thinks this is his target. Second man behind him really needs to be looking at 36, but he doesn't, and that's why it's stopped in the backfield. But what we're interested in is whether Joe Tippmann can get on 15 and a decent kick out block, and that would be the right side. So you'd put your head to play side. So play side is this side, you want the hole to come up here. He really should have blocked this guy, but he didn't. Joe's doing a good job there and manages to drive, and then that shove in the end. It is a DB, so he is scrawny. So, but nevertheless, in space, for a big man to hit a little man, that's a pretty good job. So we're going to see one of these slightly less good reps where we get that pin and pull again, but it's a one tech this time, and you can see he's not really doing anything special. 51 here, he just basically lets him wash past, and that is quite clearly a hold by Joe. And again, it all is based upon works his step. So it's a pivot step, which is fine, but you want to keep your head again upfield. You want to protect the side you're going to be going to. So you want to stay inside, but you can see he's trying to make contact with his head, maybe too aggressive. That needs to be hands really. You don't want to lunge like that. Give him your pads, and then once you've given him your pads, he just swims past you, and then you're caught holding right there. And it's a 10-yard loss of down in the NFL. Now, at the end of the day, it doesn't get called by the umpire or the referee in the backfield. And that's why it goes for actually a fairly decent game. But Joe, again, that's the downside of him. He does lunge. So what you're going to get with him is obviously the ability to go and hit people in space like this play. You're going to get the ability like we saw at the very start of him being able to physically move people. You see the difference? He's not lunging with his head, he's keeping his head up and his hands in. And he's got the strength and the core power to be able to move people at will. Slightly short arms for his massive size, but at the end of the day, he's a very effective centre, probably more in a power scheme than in zone, although he does do a pretty good job getting onto the second level there. And again, this rep to the outside here, where it's a kick out block. Good job to get on the DB there, and he's then looking downfield for the next person to hit. So positives are, he's able to physically move people. The negatives are, has a tendency to dip his head when he does his lunges, and then he loses his leverage, and he's quite easy to get past at the line of scrimmage. So for me, he's my third ranked centre behind John Michael Schmitz and Luke Whippler, but he'd be the third guy behind them. But he would need to work on not being over aggressive with his head, getting over across his feet. That's what he needs to work on for the next level, but he's a pretty good prospect. And I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, hit like, subscribe, comment on the video, let me know what you did like, what you didn't like, what you think of Joe, what games I should have looked at other than just Ohio State in this instance. Short video, quick breakdown. Hope you enjoyed it. Take care.